Good morning, everyone. My name is Jin Jin Huang. I am the chapter committee chair for diversity in ASHRAE this year. Diversity in ASHRAE, often referred to as DIA. ASHRAE love our acronyms. Thank you all for joining us this early morning for an inaugural event. Your feedback and participation today is going to help inform us in setting our future events for this committee. So we really appreciate you joining us this morning. For most of us who has worked in corporations, you have been on diversity and unconscious bias trainings. And I think it's great that companies are taking steps toward recognizing diversity. However, if you have completed some of those trainings, you also know that that just scratches the surface. And when taken repeatedly year over year, it becomes somewhat of a chore for some people. And and for some, you even begin to roll your eyes when you hear diversity training or diversity something, right? Excuse me. At the New York chapter, we recognize that we're very fortunate to have a diverse board. And today we are going to dive into some very tough questions and hear from our board's own experiences. And we hope you'll join in our discussion in the Q&A session, and we look forward to hearing from you today. And thank you, Charlie, for being our moderator today.
Thank you, Charlie.
Got it, guys. So thanks for that intro, Jin Jin. We're gonna go around and do a brief intro with everyone and share some quick thoughts on why they were interested in joining our panel discussion today and why they believe this is an important topic. And I'll start. So hi, I'm Charlie Marino. I'm with AKF Engineers. I'm our co-director of energy and performance, and I've been with ASHRAE New York for about 15 years now, and participating on the board. And when we decided to put together this particular committee last year, I thought it was important to kind of sit in and share some thoughts from some of the issues that I've seen from the sidelines of some of my colleagues and peers in the industry, and trying to ensure that we create a better pathway for career development and growth for friends that I think are fantastic engineers. So that's one of the main reasons why I'm participating today, and I'll be moderating a couple of questions for our group here, and then opening up a Q&A for live questions and responses. So thank you. Frank?
Yeah, good morning. My name is Frank Rivera from Thermal Systems Associates. We represent some phenomenal manufacturers in the sustainability and HVAC space in New York, New Jersey. I'm glad I'm a panelist on this and just talk from my experience. A little bit about me and my background. I went to college down in sunny Florida and got my MECI degree down there, where I was mostly involved with ASME and SHEP, Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. I got more involved with ASHRAE about a decade ago, attending meetings and participating on the board of governors, becoming the first young engineers in ASHRAE YEA chair. So where youth was recognized as a gap in the organization and method to reach out, identify and attract those members. Over the years, I've been appointed to numerous regional positions and became ASHRAE president in 2017, 2018 as one of the youngest presidents, the youngest Latino president. In that time frame, I've seen tremendous change in the board and amongst our membership. New York was regarded as the old white man's group club, as I was told upon entry, and where I became the youngest on the board. There were solid veterans in the industry, great knowledge, and a great group, but with so many regulars and cliques, it was a little more difficult to merge into the dinner meetings. And, over the years, there's been an organic change recognized in our board. We've become a more diverse board, more color on the board, more women on the board, 2/3 YEA, and maintained that for a number of years now. So a board that ASHRAE as a society has admired, with a perfect blend of some veteran leadership, young, educated, emerging professionals, diverse among the umbrella of HVAC, but also culture and background as well. And I'm glad to be a panelist here and provide some insight from that take.
Thanks, Frank. Thomas, want to introduce yourself?
Thank you. Thanks, Charlie. Good morning, everybody. My name is Thomas Reyes. I'm the Director of Business Development for Trane, New York City. I've been an ASHRAE member for a little, I think this is 7 years. This is my 8th year that I'm an ASHRAE member of the New York chapter. And you know, I'm glad to be on this panel and also a committee member of the DIA committee. The reason being is, as a manufacturer, you know, we have a unique perspective of being able to look at the entire industry at once. We see from the corporate side of a global manufacturer. We see on the engineering side, big engineers, small engineers, medium-sized firms. We get to see those differences because they're our clients. And same thing with contractors, big contractors, medium to small contractors. We get to see the whole gambit at once. And over the years, I've been in this market for 13 years. Over the years, I've been able to see the change, and I also am able to see where things can improve to kind of accelerate more change. So I'm glad to be on this panel, and hopefully I can share some experiences and input that may help everybody.
Thanks, Thomas. Mina, we're happy you were able to join us technically. That's great. You want to introduce yourself?
Morning. Is everything working okay? All right. Well, thanks for inviting me. My name is Mina Agurabi. I am a woman-owned. I operate and own a small women-owned business in New York City. I've been on the ASHRAE board for a number of years now, but I think I also bring an additional perspective because I'm heavily involved in the technical committees at the national level, and I've been to a number of conferences. I've either chaired a session, helped organize programs, as well as I'm currently now chair of TC 7.9 building commissioning. So I also have made an effort to try and organize joint events between ASHRAE and Society of Women Engineers, as well as other Green Home NYC and other local organizations. So I'd be happy to talk to anyone, as well as at this session, about women in ASHRAE, as well as just how to navigate locally, nationally, as well as how do we work together to enhance everybody's knowledge, improve our community, and also have fun. How do we, you know, how do we bring everybody back together and have fun and have a smile on our face? My personal background, my degree is in biomedical engineering, and I have a master's in ergonomics and biomechanics. So I've totally kind of switched gears. However, though, I think having a foundation with an engineering degree has greatly helped enable me to do that. So if there's anybody out there that's, you know, not sure how to transition into this field, I can also offer some advice as that. So I think those are my main points. Thank you again for inviting me. I'm excited to get the discussion going.
Thanks, Mina. And you know, as some of you may have learned from signing up for our session today, the diversity in ASHRAE is a society level commitment and effort. And so our chapter is trying to participate in that, and there are many other chapters throughout the country that are doing the same. So if you're active in other regions as well, you can reach out to the chair in that region and get involved. Sarvesh, you want to take us home on the intros?
I can't hear you, Sarvesh.
Yeah, you might need to call in there, Sarvesh, I think.
Thanks, Charlie. Good morning, everybody. My name is Sarvesh.
Yeah, Sylvester, you might have to call in your robot voice now.
Yeah, maybe once you fix your audio, we can. Charlie, now we can hear you. Are you on mute?
Hi, I was. Thanks,
Okay,
Ginger.
great.
Well, I was saying there's always one hang up besides someone muting themselves and talking. Myself. Okay, great. So we'll introduce Sarvesh just in a moment. I think we're going to get right into the questions. So we have a little more time for Q&A for others that are joining us this morning. Great. So Frank, let's start things on more of a positive note. Thinking about, you already expressed some of your comments on how you were able to join the board and do some amazing things kind of right out of the gate. I remember when you had joined our board freshly out of college, just running with it. That was pretty great.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Just hang on a second, Sarvesh. So Frank, thinking about ASHRAE and this focus on diversity, how has ASHRAE New York fostered an environment of inclusion to some degree already? Understanding how that looks.
Yeah, I'd say ASHRAE has done a pretty solid job of fostering an environment by creating a platform for leadership development, soft skills, networking, and cultivating an organic path to participate and grow. A stereotypical engineer may be more introverted and siloed at a position of climbing a pretty conventional ladder at their particular company. I'm a PE on the sales side, so it's allowed me to connect with peers who chose this same career path and looking to make a difference and contribute in it. With that as the common denominator, first and foremost, it helped create a level playing field in my experiences. I was able to align with a group when taking my FE and then my PE exams. Public speaking at conferences and larger venues has provided experience outside of on the job. I was able to obtain regional positions that allowed me to travel and put in scenarios that better prepared me in my professional career. All these aspects factored into building a foundation to be the, like I mentioned before, the youngest Latino president, and has allowed me to connect and speak with peer organizations, just sharing my experience with others.
Thanks, Frank. And Sarvesh, now that you're back and we can hear you, maybe do a quick intro, and if you could want to respond to that question too.
Sure. Sorry for the technical difficulties. So my name is Sarvesh. I am a mechanical engineer at ADS Engineers. I've been involved with ASHRAE since 2012 as a student member, and today I wanted to offer my perspective as someone who moved to the country only about 10 years ago, and what that meant for me and how it has impacted me right from the immigration system kind of affecting whether or not I have a job, or the fact that when I'm in a room, when I first moved to this country and I was in a group full of people who are, I was the only non-American in a group full of people, I would always be conscious of the fact that I feel like an outsider, and I'd be hesitant to contribute, and people would think maybe he doesn't have a good grasp of the English language, and just how my involvement with ASHRAE kind of helped me overcome that, just getting more involved and kind of assimilating. And today, as a board member of the ASHRAE New York chapter, I'm very happy to be a panelist on this group. Regarding the question that that Frank had talked about earlier, I think the question was regarding how ASHRAE has fostered diversity and inclusion. I strongly believe that ASHRAE, in its very core value, imbibes a sense of diversity, inclusion, because if you see, every chapter in the world has some kind of a lunch meeting or a dinner meeting or a gathering where members and non-members are invited, and basically everyone there has one thing common with everyone else, and that's their interest in the HVAC industry. So I think events such as a dinner meeting is a great first step platform to kind of get everyone in the room to network and learn more about HVAC technology. And in addition to that, I think a lot of the ASHRAE grassroots movements, such as YEA, student membership, women in ASHRAE, and now diversity in ASHRAE are definitely platforms and avenues that people who are passionate about one of those areas can get involved as an HVAC engineer, and then kind of be included in the whole ASHRAE voice, and be included in the ASHRAE events and ASHRAE community as a whole.
Charlie, I don't want to dwell too long on this question, but and I know you have a lot of great questions coming up. Just to add to that, I think that for all of us who've been to ASHRAE at the national level, and I've personally participated many years at the national level, you can tell that the ASHRAE higher level is very homogenous of old white men, and that's not by design. And I think that's part of the reason why ASHRAE has relaunched. We had women in ASHRAE, and now we're trying to expand it to diversity in ASHRAE, and we're really trying to encourage. How do we get young, talented, diverse boards like ours elevated to the higher level in ASHRAE at the national level? And I think that's why we're trying to have these conversations to encourage more participation, more Franks at the higher level at ASHRAE. So, and I agree with you, Sarvesh, 100%. I think ASHRAE does encourage and embody that and support that movement. However, we're just trying to have these conversations to encourage more participation at that level.
No, that's great. Thanks, Jin Jin, for adding that. And thank you, Frank and Sarvesh. It's great to hear how ASHRAE has really been a conduit for creating inclusion, getting folks from all walks of life kind of involved with engineering. And it's a pretty safe group to get involved with. I guess one of the areas we're going to focus on now is outside of ASHRAE, just within the workplace. Some experiences that others have expressed in some of our pre-planning calls. And I'm going to ask on Jin Jin, and Frank also, if you could share some personal examples of unconscious bias in the workplace. Whether or not comments were made to you overtly in a sexist or racist fashion. Some of those things maybe from your career.
I think as an executive, I am often in a room with other executives and doing reviews. And it's all too apparent to me how different women and men are reviewed, right? You can have women who are real high performers, but then, maybe she's just not outgoing enough. She doesn't speak up enough in meetings. So I think she's not quite ready for that next promotion. Or you'll have a woman that is too outspoken, and then they're like, she's really great, but I think she needs to work on her communication skills. She tends to be a little confrontational, and these managers, when you talk to them, they're really good managers, right? They do promote the team. And then at review time, they don't even notice that how they review men and women, they don't use the same language. And I think that's just, and going back to that training that I talked about, it just scratches the surface. I think we need, as a industry all across, we need to go deeper in the training and trying to draw out. And it's not just a checkbox every year that, oh, I did my diversity training again. As a personal experience, I think that, I've been very fortunate in my industry that I have great mentors, and I've been recognized for my achievements. And I think being in the engineering technical world is easier because if you're technically sound and you perform, and people know what you are capable of. But I personally, the most racist and unconscious bias experience I've experienced, and he was trying to be nice, was an old white gentleman saying to me that, and I was sharing maybe some little anecdote that I went on a tourist bus that, as a fellow tourist, but as I was passing other tourists, they were trying to hand me their tickets because they assume, well, obviously I'm the only non-white person on the trolley. I am the ticket collector, right? And I said this to this older gentleman, and he said to me, he was like, wow, that is just so shocking. He's like, you know, when I see you, I don't see color. I see you as a white person. And he said it as a nice thing. And I'm like, wow, like that's not my ultimate goal, is to for other white people to see me as a white person. Like, but that he thought that as a compliment, you know, because I fit in and like, you know, I'm performing so well. So I'll stop it there, Frank.
Sure. I mean, I definitely have experienced bias in the workplace. My profession has design involvement and sales arm. We work with different consultants on their respective projects. I had a situation where it was a major rehab project. It was just kicking off. I performed the building survey with the architect and construction team, and first on the scene, a certain engineer got involved and diverted back to their cliques and was reluctant to meet or converse on the topic. I was really boxed out at that time frame, and we proposed solid ideas and concept for the project, that which aspects of my proposal did get utilized on the project. But I was asked to perform a second survey. I was asked to produce notarized letters from the company, documents from manufacturers, all within a really tight time frame, within a day or so. And you know, just speaking, you know, personally as a minority, my upbringing, it's been coached that you have to work twice as hard as the next person. So there is a level of understanding that is inherent. More hurdles you have to jump through, but requests here were obviously becoming well beyond any requirements, well beyond any specifications. And I know for a fact my competitor did not have to meet any of those requirements. It just became pretty clear that there was bias, and I wasn't getting a fair shake. I ultimately wasn't a part of the project. I said my peace of mind after the fact, and it's a shame because ultimately the client suffered. Time has gone by, and that individual is no longer at the firm due to similar handled circumstances and instances from what I've been made aware of. So ultimately that behavior did cost them.
Wow. Thank you both for sharing those stories. Pretty wild to hear both those perspectives. You know, when thinking about, I guess, you know, with the number of seniorship, I would say from the people making up this panel today, now most of you are all in positions to help others, you know, if they're expressing some issues in the workplace, maybe a colleague or peer. Can you share some personal anecdotes of how maybe you've helped someone, coach someone to kind of get past these hurdles and think about the right next step? Maybe Jin Jin, if you wanna take that one.
Thanks, Charlie. I'll be quick and let other panelists speak too. So for me personally, I make sure that when I interview for a position that I have equal number of women and men candidates, and make sure that there's diversity, not just in gender, but also in background. And, you know, I make that clear to our HR when I interview, and I personally make an effort to, in the finalist pool, try to keep that diversity. Obviously, talent and background matters, right? But I want to make sure that, you know, with equal talent and background, that there is that diversity going all the way up. I think oftentimes you see in practices that people start out with a diverse pool to do a checkbox, but in the finalist round, you end up with no diversity, right? And I try to, as an executive in a hiring pool, to maintain that diversity all the way through.
Thanks, Jin Jin. Any others want to share some thoughts? Maybe Thomas, just to kind of get you engaged in the conversation a bit.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Sorry, I just got an email pop up on my on my iPad. No,
same here.
I would say, you know, early in my career, and I would say the most clear example to me for just unconscious bias is, you know, very early in my career, my background's architecture, so I was not a mechanical engineer. I came from the architecture side of the world, and you know, in the office when people are, trying to either work together, solve problems, depending on whose contractors are bidding a project or who's designing the job, and they're trying to solve. It's like there was a little bit of a hesitancy. So, well, we're not really sure. Can Thomas provide X, Y, and Z? And again, not a knock at anybody. There was just in the office sense, there was a little bit of unsurety of what I could provide, right? But we go outside in summer at to play pickup basketball. I'm literally the first person everybody picks. So it's one of those things where, granted, I was in much better shape back in the day, but granted, the reality is like when it comes to the desire to win, I'll look at both scenarios as the competition. The desire to win, in a sports standpoint, I was the obvious, clear first choice. But when it came to technical positions, technical strategy, things like that, there was a little bit of unsurety in that. And I think that comes, unconsciously. And it took years to kind of work through that to get to a place where now, when there is a problem, they know that, hey, listen, this person can provide solutions and strategy and help guide me through it. It took years to get through that. But coming in at the very beginning of my career, I wasn't given the benefit of the doubt that some people also get.
Thanks, Thomas. Thanks for sharing those thoughts there. Mina, to get you a bit engaged in the conversation here, do you think these stories, these hurdles are somewhat specific to the HVAC in our industry, or are these some things that we're seeing generally more broadly?
Well, I'd say coming from a biomedical engineering background, I would say, and as well, even originally very heavily university research oriented, I would say there's certain aspects you see across the all industries, but I think in each scenario it kind of takes a specific angle or like a unique twist. And so I think from my days in biomedical engineering, I think there was a heavy emphasis on what are your certifications? Are you licensed? We don't deal with you unless you have lots of letters after your name, which I think creates like this false sense of like, oh, I just need to just accrue lots of certifications rather than value experience and discovery on your own and understanding and working with people. So I think that's one thing I've encountered with as a young engineer, feeling like the only way that someone's going to talk to me is based on my status, which I think is not the right image.
Mm-hmm.
I think another thing across industries, as a volunteer on Society Women Engineers, I've worked, as well as actually the knitting club, we've done a bunch of role-playing exercises in the engineering fields with civil and structural and various other aspects, and we've tried to understand in general what are other people's perspectives of women in engineering, and how do you interact and how do you present yourself, and also not to fall into the, oh, let me offer to get coffee or let me offer to be extra nice so that people will like pay attention to me, and trying to break common, not mistakes, but misunderstandings, I'd like to say, and how to present yourself and how to interact and engage.
Thanks, Mina. I appreciate that. Anyone else want to jump in on that question before we move on? Okay, that's great. So this is one of my number one pet peeves of things that I've heard about when thinking about diversity in the workplace, especially in the engineering world. Some engineers have justified the lack of diversity in the workplace as simply the numbers aren't there. That's why we don't see a more diverse workforce in the consulting engineering world. So maybe I could ask the panel now, how can STEM, job training, recruitment practices help further create a more diverse and inclusive environment within our industry? And Thomas, maybe we could start that dialogue.
Okay. I guess I'll say this because I know this can be a broad answer, but I'll try and be as quick as possible. With respect to STEM, I mean, you have to look at both the short term and the long term at the same time. As a firm, as a business owner, you can't invest all or one or the other. You have to look at both. When looking at both, I think there are two things that you can do. Number one, accept diversity for what it really is. Diversity is differences in genders, differences in age, differences in race, differences in experience. There's a difference between people who grew up in the inner city versus people who grew up in the suburbs. There's a thought, logic, mentality difference there. They can have equal qualifications from a degree standpoint, but there is a different logic behind all of that. And I think, as a firm, there needs to be more of an embracement of what diversity really is. It's not just picking a different demographic and pulling them in. It's ultimately opening the doors to all demographics, number one. And number two, recruitment practices need to change. I see this on the engineering side. I see firms that, once an engineer ascends to a partner position or even associate partner position, there is that following where they tend to recruit from their college and they go back, and that influence, their other people from the same college starts to come back and be pulled in. And what that creates is, if you think about it from a recruitment standpoint, recruiting people from the same college, usually from the same groups or mindsets, the way they think. And what you have over time is a group of people that essentially think the same because they function in the same circles. We all know in business, it's about your network in terms of whether you get hired or not necessarily just your absolute qualifications. And what that tends to lead to is groupthink, right? Where you have a lot of people that think the same, have the same experiences, or at least similar enough. And that unconscious bias gets fostered because if everyone around you sees the world the way you do, chances are something's different, you're not going to get it. So I think from a recruitment standpoint, firms, engineers, contractors, all firms in general need to be a little bit more deliberate in the recruiting practice. Make sure they recruit people from different backgrounds. Don't look at just the resume from their college. Look at where they work, look at where they grew up, look at who they socialize with, what sports they play. I mean, chances are the guy whose best sport is tennis or golf is not going to be the best person on a team, to work. But, the person who's been playing basketball or football their entire life, chances are they're going to mesh well with everybody else, right? And that's just, that's in the recruiting. You've got to look for those things, but it takes a conscious effort to do that. And when you start doing that, and then you start bringing in different people, different demographics, and then it allows that diversity to flow. So I think the two things I would say is accept diversity for what it really is, and also adjust your recruiting practices, because that in itself is a barrier that needs to be removed.
Wow, thank you, Thomas. Great insights. Mina, maybe you could answer that question as well, and also provide some thoughts about training for management within an organization to kind of further some of the takeaways Thomas just went over.
Sure. One other thought though that came to mind is, and this came up the other day, was just because you go into study engineering doesn't mean that your communication and your writing skills aren't important as well. And I think being able to handle the curriculum you're given for your degree, as well as social and other work basic skills, they all need to be given equal importance and equal weight. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of times in engineering firms, as you move up, a lot of people end up moving up to a certain point, and then beyond that, if certain firms are structured that you naturally just move into management. And so if your training and your base is, you're only focused on the technical and you've excelled in all of that, now they say, okay, we think you're a great asset. We want you to now manage a bunch of people. That's going to require communication, writing skills, as well as other managerial, as well as other skills. So I think along the way, you have to understand that you have to continually learn and adapt. So I think at firms, they need to emphasize on not only just continuing education, but maybe workshops and specific trainings for those people that want to eventually move into the management position. So long-term planning, not just focusing on what projects or what quota I need to meet by the end of the year, but in 5 years, what do I need to start doing now to be ready in 5 years? Because you don't want to just have someone leave and then say, okay, well, you've been here the longest, we're just going to move you up. Like to me, that's asking for problems. I'm not saying you're not qualified, but I just have been in that position, and it seemed it's rough. And then I think the other thing is I just blanked. I'm gonna pause. Sorry, I'll pass, and if I remember it, I'll bring it up. Sorry, I just blanked.
That's okay.
Charlie, do you mind if I interject? Just to bring what Thomas and Mina was just saying, it's so important. I think it's, what can companies in STEM do? We need to cultivate, right? We need to be better prepared. You hire diverse pool of, junior staff, but if, like Thomas said, if you're a kid that grew up in inner city and your education might not be on par with your peers who have always had the Ivy League education and had the upbringing, and you're competing with different set of tools, as Mina said, right? You could be strong technically because you graduated from a good engineering school and you've developed those technical skills, but those other skills, those soft skills, you were not given the opportunity to cultivate that. And I think we as managers and companies can be better at recognizing junior staff in their technical talent, and also recognizing what is a good training protocol for those individuals, right? I think the one size doesn't fit all. And if we want to continue and cultivate diversity at upper management and throughout the full section of the company, we need to be able to provide those tools, as Mina said, right? If you're technical, but you don't know how to write and your communication skills are soft, then let's make sure as a manager, we recognize that and we cultivate those skills and provide a proper training and you can't give equal training to everybody, right? Because this is not tailored to particularly, I think, minorities that come from a more disadvantaged background.
Yeah, thank you, Jin Jin. Thanks for bringing that all together there. I do have a few questions left, but we got some great questions coming through the chat box. So if you do have any questions, please enter them and we'll work our way through. So guys, I'm gonna look at that and maybe pull one or two right now, kind of mix it up just a tad bit. And they're not too hard, so I think you guys can handle them. So first question, which is really a combo, so A and B. What can our industry do to improve our diversity? From what I understand, the idea is that we match the demographics in our area. How does that apply to engineering? Anyone want to take that cluster?
I wouldn't mind real quick. One thought would be workforce reentry, and something that's open to both, to both sides, both genders, both parties, individuals. If people need to take time off to take care of a loved one, raise a child, and then want to come back into the industry, having systems and support in place that encourage people to do that. So I think that is one important strategy that engineering, I think, needs to pay more attention to.
Thanks, Mina. Any others?
Yeah, I'll say from an industry perspective, I think what the industry can do as a whole is, stop looking back at the glory days and look forward at where we need to be, because there are a multitude of different industry problems that are facing us in terms of a labor shortage, right? There are things that are coming. There's age gaps in every firms where the gap between the senior partners or even the associate partners and senior engineers is probably 10, 15, 20 years. So there is a real problem that's coming down the pike, and as an industry, what we can do is, I would say, stop looking at the past and look at the future and understand what you need to do to prepare yourself to succeed and survive in the future. Because if you don't, there is a cliff, and it's coming very, very quickly.
I just wanted to add to Thomas's comment there. I think having a good mentoring program where someone in a senior position takes on a younger engineer from diverse backgrounds and really kind of mentoring them and supporting them, because usually what would happen is at the upper management level there isn't as much diversity as there is at at the junior level, and so I feel like someone who is diverse from the typical older white male senior management, I think having that mentor, having an assigned mentor, would give that person confidence and kind of what is needed to help them push through and to kind of feel more comfortable in asserting themselves. So I definitely think good mentoring programs are important.
Sarvesh, thanks for teeing that up, because at ASHRAE in the New York chapter, we are thinking about creating a mentoring program and, recognizing that there are a lot of young people out there. They come to our meetings and they see, oh, wow, the New York chapter board, the board is so diverse, how do I get there? But then I think a lot of younger folks are too shy to, be proactive and ask. So we're going to try to open up more mentoring programs and making that more readily available to folks that are coming to our chapter, even if you're not a member, right? I think we're happy to hear from you guys and how we can make that successful. But I think as an industry, we need to work harder in our recruitment. As Thomas said, don't just do the easy thing and go to your college, right? We recognize that there is a shortage of young people trying to come into the HVAC field. It's not glamorous, right? Like, how many people know about HVAC when you're in college, right? And to recruit talent, let's not be lazy and be like, oh, okay, this young guy has or young woman has a college buddy that is interested in coming in. Okay, we need somebody, let's hire them, right? Let's be proactive and recognizing that we are seeing a shortfall of young talent replacing the senior management. Let's be proactive in how we want to replace that workforce, right? Not just do the easy thing, go to a nearby college or go to a college that you've always gone to recruit, but look at where is the industry and where do we want to take it, and then have a strategy on how you want to recruit. And I think that we can't be lazy about it, and that's what we can do in our industry.
Yeah, awesome conversation here. Thank you, Jin Jin. And going back to the list of questions here, now thinking about ASHRAE as a whole, with diversity in ASHRAE, do you feel as though, I'm really speaking to the entire panel here, we have a clear sense of what ASHRAE's take is at this point on thinking about diversity, when comparing to some peer organizations, we've seen some strong language about inclusion and some more specific goals. But yeah, I'm really interested to hear from you what your thoughts are from a ASHRAE society perspective. And maybe Mina, I know you're one of our, and Jin Jin, both participating in varying different technical committees. but really open to anyone to just kind of jump in on that one.
Well, I'll offer up, at least at the New York City level, I think one thing that we've been doing that that I think is helpful is we've been reaching out beyond the engineering circle, right? So I know people on our committee have reached out to adjoining societies that have similar goals, but that might not necessarily be engineers. And so I think, you know, it's good to build your own base, but I also think it's good to keep your finger on the pulse and know, you know, what is the real estate industry thinking? What is the, you know, I don't know, whatever other consulting industry is thinking, doing, and show an interest in helping and working together to do community events to raise awareness. So I think locally that's something that I think New York City is doing a good job at, and I'd like to see it maybe at the higher level a little bit more. So that's one thing I'd like to offer up.
Thanks, Mina. Yeah, you know, I think please keep the questions coming in. Got some good stuff coming through the chat here. This is a great question. How do we initiate reverse mentoring conversations in our engineering organizations, kind of like training upwards to some degree on these type of topics? And that's open to anyone.
I'll take a stab at that because that's definitely something that I've experienced, and I think I would say gently. It requires it requires people skills, and the reason I say people skills is these principals have accomplished a lot. They've done the hard work. They've done calculations by hand. There's a lot of accolades to their resume that they carry, and then there's pride in that. At the end of the day, it's human nature. If you've climbed the mountain and you're finally there, you've earned that. So you want to still remain there. I think the best way to reverse engineer is do it respectfully. Understand that, you know, listen, these senior principals, they come with a wealth of experience, but at the same time, there are things that you can teach them too, and it's a gentle give and take where, hey, Mr. Principal, I know you know a lot of these technical things, so I'm not going to try and, you know, convince you that, you know, I know more, that I can help you be more technical. But what I can do is be a bridge in terms of communication, because our generation sees things, understand things, moves completely differently than your generation. And in order for us to work together, you know, there are things that I can teach you, and you have to establish that partnership with that senior principal, so that way they trust that you can communicate. And once you're able to build that bridge of communication, things get easier year after year after year, because now you're teaching them, they're gaining, and they can now impart to you the skills and technical background that they have essentially in their back pocket. So I think it's gently with respect, but also communicating that there are other ways to learn, other things that you can teach, and you bring value to them.
Sure, and I think the tail of that and platforms like this, you know, we're doing this here and network it as over coffee, having some kind of forum or opportunity just to talk about this within your respective offices. You're always told, know your audience, and that collaboration is more important now than forever, than ever. We've had more of an industry disruption with, you talk about the industry going electrification and decarbonization, COVID and remote work, different generations, Gen Y, Gen Z, and the boomers. That collaboration there needs to be more discussion. And part of this is that discussion, and having some kind of platform or forum to do so is the first step.
And just to quickly, sorry, Charlie, to add to that, I would say participate, right? You participate in ASHRAE, participate in, you know, your industry. you have to put yourself in position where you're working alongside a senior person, right? Seize those opportunities where you can be in those situations where you're working next to them, right? You don't expect that, oh, I'm young, I'm smart, I'm talented, you know, they should recognize what I have to bring and just like, you know, invite me to the table. You have to fight for that space in the table, right? Not just at, you know, when you're starting out, you have to, and I hate to say it, but you do have to prove yourself to a certain extent, right? And if you have a lot to offer, you need to show people what you have to offer. So by participating, as Frank said, in forums like this, and you know, diversity in ASHRAE, and whatever forum that is offered to you, you have to work alongside the senior member or whoever you're trying to communicate with, and develop that communication channel in order for that dialogue to happen, as Thomas was saying, right?
Yeah, no, thanks. That's terrific. That was some great responses there. And you know, there has been one or two questions. I think you spoke to it well, Frank, about thinking about collaboration generally in the workplace, not just kind of reverse management and training these thoughts, but collaborative through the whole office or the project team. It's really important. Yeah, another great question just came in. Thinking about diversity training, you know, it's a good tool for companies to encourage equal opportunities within the company. But the question is, how do you handle or maneuver around suspected bias from a client? You know, have maybe anyone could kind of speak to that, kind of think about, you know, you have to, that's a tough line to walk. Can anyone share some thoughts?
I'll
You don't have
take
to
it.
mention a client's name, Thomas.
No, yeah, no. Well, obviously not. Definitely not going to do that. I'll say this, and at the risk of giving bad advice, I would say, you have to be sure in yourself. And at the end of the day, your client has to respect you for who you are, what you stand for. It is okay to respectfully tell your client that's wrong. You know, you may lose them as a client, you may lose the job, there may be other negative consequences. But at the end of the day, fundamentally, if this is ever really going to work, you need to be grounded in yourself or what you stand for. And if you can respectfully tell your client that's wrong, or they've said something wrong, I mean, there's scenarios where, you know, a client may make an off-color joke to a female colleague of yours. And, you know, in that moment, in that scenario, you have to, it's your responsibility to make sure you respectfully, you know, push back and let the client know where you stand or what your values are, what the team brings to the table. Because that's the only way it's going to change. Granted, they are the client and it's easier said than done, but fundamentally, you have to be grounded in your own character. You have to be grounded in your own integrity and be able to do that. Because guess what? If more, arguably, if more people do that and push back on that client, guess what? At a certain point, they're going to have to change because they can't work with anybody. And that's how it gets done. If you stand in your ground and you're correct, you know, they go to the next company, they go to the company after that, and guess what? Everyone tells them, no, you can't act that way. Guess what? They will change, or at least they will curb their enthusiasm, lack of a better description. So, like I said, I think the easiest way to do that is to make sure you're sure of yourself, be confident in your own integrity, who you are, what you stand for, and respectfully and gently push back, because it's going to happen, and you've got to be able to have those tough, open conversations. And you'll be surprised, once you gain that client's respect, you know, there's much more business that comes down the pike when they respect you, as opposed to when they think they can just push you around.
Yeah, I think you put that really well, Thomas. And Frank, I think your first comments for the panel discussion kind of echoed some of those thoughts when you were bidding on that project and had some issues. So yeah, really interesting to hear. I think, you know, we only have a, go ahead, Frank. No,
no, I think that's you can try to do so tactfully, but it's as Thomas mentioned, you know, it's maintaining your character integrity and a professionalism to it. and you know what you bring to the table and your value add. You can express that professionally, and you know, maybe that isn't the right client for you, but at least you have your grounds that you're standing on, and you don't have to stoop to certain levels as well. You know, that's your business, that's your value add. You can maintain your professionalism and your integrity, and feel better at the end of the day, moving forward with that in hand.
Thanks, Frank.
I also want to add that, you know, it's in speaking up, sometimes, I mean, obviously be respectful and in keeping that integrity in yourself and not taking it to a different level. I think sometimes we can't assume that the other person knows that they're behaving in a bad way. Sometimes you have to point it out to them politely and say, listen, you know, that's probably not what you intended, but what you said in that meeting earlier made me feel this, right? And I would appreciate moving forward if you're a little more cognizant of, you know, how you, whatever, right? Like to that. And sometimes you might be surprised by that person and say, wow, I'm so sorry. Like that was not what I intended. And that not just helps yourself, but also the next time they interact with somebody, right? So just want to throw that out there also.
Thanks, Jin Jin. Yeah, we only have a few minutes here left, so thanks again, everyone, for joining us today. You know, feel free to send in some more questions and we can respond later. We are going to be sending around a survey, so please kindly fill that out and complete that. You know, for the panelists, thanks again. Really appreciate everyone joining and sharing their personal takes. You know, we have 2 minutes here, so I just kind of like to go around the panel here and ask for some final thoughts. You know, we've made some significant progress over time, kind of going back to comments that Frank and Sarvesh had mentioned within the industry to kind of make it inclusive. But, you know, it sounds like we still have a road to go. So maybe it's just some closing thoughts on things that you would like to see in the short term continue to improve. And let's start with Mina.
Okay, well, thanks again for having me. And I'd like to just kind of recap in the sense of when you're working with a team, I think it's really important to know everybody's contributions. So, you know, maybe someone's a connector, and how can you interact with that person? Or maybe someone's, you know, not over, you know, aggressive and doesn't always speak up. So how do you include them into conversations without feeling like you're putting them on the spot? So I think it's really important to be adaptable in each meeting and see how you can really, you know, include everybody's piece of, you know, ideas and in whether it's speaking or in writing or whatever to collectively meet the goals or agenda of the meeting or day. I would say also, I think having more open forums where people can raise issues, concerns at the workplace and or in a society. Maybe people don't feel comfortable talking at a workspace. They want to talk to people maybe outside of their community because it's too close knit and they want different perspectives. So I think having more areas where people can go to and speak freely is something that ASHRAE could nationally as well as locally could really help support people young of various experiences, ages, and stages in their career.
Thanks, Mina. Yeah, we'll just close out here, Thomas, and then city guys.
My only closing comment would be don't be afraid. I mean, at the end of the day, this is a scary concept, and there's a lot of emotions tied to it, you know. And I would say try to be as open as possible and talk through, because no one likes being told that they're wrong, but you know, it's always a blessing to learn something new. And once you learn it, you can grow. And my closing comment would be to just be open to growth and always be learning.
Thank you, Thomas. Frank?
Yeah, thanks for having me. And I think we're certainly going in the right direction with just having platforms like this. This is more of an open dialogue to address the subject. our individual perspectives on the matter are heard and more open to identify an issue and then just find a resolution for it, as opposed to just what was been inherent is just don't hate the players. This is just part of the overall game. Topics like this were not talked about on a platform. It's just amongst our respective groups. So I think just having a platform to talk about this is great. We're open over coffee.
I'm glad someone else is drinking coffee on this one. Thanks, Frank. Jin Jin?
I would say be supportive of each other. And I think it's often, we're quick to judge, oh, this person is behaving poorly toward me. And sometimes, we in our own hurry and in our own stress in our own daily lives, we behave poorly. I think that, as long as we, as Thomas said, stay open-minded, and as Frank said, just continue doing that, the positive and recognizing that, and just be supportive of each other.
That's great. And Sarvesh, why don't you take us home?
Sure. Thanks for having me as a panelist. Just like to close out by saying that whenever you have a problem, an issue, it may bother you a lot, but when you have a platform or some person you can share it with, it always seems less of an issue. And when someone else relates to it, it can seem less of a burden. And it's fantastic that we have a platform like this, and it's a good starting point. And hopefully from here we can take it forward and see, more diversity in our community and in the ASHRAE community.
Thank you, Sarvesh. That's great. So yeah, thank you again all for joining us. We'll be sending out a survey as a follow-up email. We're very interested to hear if you'd like to hear an ongoing dialogue about this in a webinar format, trying to understand the right way to engage. So please feel free to give us your candid comments, and yeah, we hope to talk to you next time. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.